Hi, I'm Veronica Wasek, and I help Shopify sellers to set up, organize, and streamline their financial systems, whether you're looking for DIY, done with you, or done for you financials. In this video, I'll talk about the biggest U.S. sales tax mistakes that new Shopify sellers make. Are you a new Shopify seller, and does the thought of keeping up with sales taxes just make you want to run away and hide? No worries, I'll break down the biggest mistakes that new Shopify sellers make with US sales taxes and even explain sales taxes to you at the end of this video. Let's get started. Mistake number 1, panic. Sales tax rules can be complicated, but there's no need to panic. In fact, most new sellers don't have to worry about collecting sales taxes in other states until they meet the minimum threshold. You need to understand the basics of sales taxes, and I'll explain that at the end of this video. Unfortunately, that leads to mistake number 2, bad advice. So you're in a panic because you don't understand sales taxes, and you seek advice from online groups who are filled with people who are scared about sales taxes just like you. Or you consult your local accountant who's not familiar with sales taxes for online sellers, or you log into Shopify and it tells you that you have met the threshold in a state. Keep in mind that people in online groups and even the folks at Shopify are not sales tax experts. Many of them will say, I heard that, or I read this somewhere. But you don't want to make business decisions based on what someone may have heard. And also keep in mind that most accountants are not trained in sales taxes. Sales tax compliance for online sellers is a specialty, and few accountants work on or even know about it. Sadly, in most cases, you'll end up making the next 2 mistakes. And that leads us to mistake number 3. You register in every state to collect sales taxes. Okay, so you asked around and someone told you that you need to register to collect sales taxes in every state. Wrong. You don't have to register to collect sales taxes unless you have met something called Nexus. I'll explain what Nexus is shortly. Mistake number 4. You collect sales taxes without registration. And that's wrong too. You should not collect sales taxes unless you register in a state. Mistake number 5, not understanding sales tax basics for online sellers. Let's unravel the mysteries of sales taxes so that you can avoid making these costly mistakes. One of the most important things you should know about sales taxes is that the rules are different for every state. So the rules vary from state to state, and the rules change on a regular basis. For Shopify sellers, the burden is on the seller to register, collect, and remit sales taxes. When it comes to sales taxes, you need to consider whether you have physical nexus and/or economic nexus. What's nexus? Nexus is a level of connection that you have with a state or jurisdiction. It's just really a fancy word for saying that once you have nexus in a state, then you need to register, collect, and remit sales taxes in that state. The first type of nexus that you need to consider is whether you have physical nexus. For many states, physical nexus has to do with whether you have a physical presence in a state, whether you have warehouses in a particular state, or even whether you have employees or sales reps. Now keep in mind that every state has different rules, and so you need to make sure that you look up your state and see whether you have physical nexus as well as other states based on these physical nexus rules. And then you have economic nexus. Economic nexus refers to when you sell from one state to other states. You must meet the minimum threshold for each state before you have economic nexus. And the minimum thresholds are based on minimum dollar amounts or number of transactions. And then you also have to consider product taxability. Is the product that you're selling taxable in a state? For example, I have a client who sells clothing, and clothing is not taxable in every state. In order to stay in compliance with your sales taxes, first you have to determine whether you have nexus. Sales tax experts recommend that you do a nexus study. And that means that you're going to look at all of the states in which you have had sales for a particular period of time and look back to see whether you've met the minimum threshold for a dollar amount of transactions or number of transactions. Then you also have to assess product taxability in the states in which you have nexus. Once you've determined that you have nexus and that your product is taxable in a state, then you need to register, collect, and remit sales taxes. And it's important that you do it in that order. You need to register for sales taxes first before you can collect sales taxes, and then once you collect, then you can remit. Here's a chart for my friends at Sales Tax and More at salestaxandmore.com. They specialize in sales taxes, and they put together this great chart of the economic nexus thresholds for sales tax. Let's take a look at the state of Arkansas. Their financial threshold is $100,000 in sales, and their transaction threshold is 200 transactions. And their look-back period is the previous or current calendar year. For the state of Arizona, the financial threshold is $100,000 in sales, and they don't have a minimum transaction threshold. And at the bottom for California, their monetary threshold is $500,000. As a new Shopify seller, then unless you have met the monetary thresholds or transaction thresholds for these states, you don't have to worry on day one from an economic nexus standpoint, because you must first meet the monetary or transaction thresholds in all of these states. So if you have sales into the state of California, for example, you have to wait until you have $500,000 in sales for the previous or current calendar year before you would reach Nexus. I'm Veronica Wasek. Are you ready to work with an experienced and reliable Shopify accounting pro? Check the description below to learn more about my services and how we might work together. If this content is helping you, then subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and give me a thumbs up. And check the description below for all of my resources, including my free Shopify bookkeeping blueprint and the link to join my Facebook community. And let me know in the comments if there are any other topics that you'd like me to cover in the future. I'm here to help you. I'll see you next time.